Deep beneath the surface, there lies a mystery that looks like it came straight out of Star Wars. From military vessels to valuable natural resources, here's what's been found at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Sea is the largest body of brackish water in the world, bordering Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. It's also home to the largest amber deposits in the world. Shards of amber often washed up on the Baltic shoreline, especially in Kaliningrad, Russia, which exports 90% of the world's amber. Perhaps the most famous use of Baltic amber was in the construction of the Amber Room. Fitted with large amber panels and other ornate details, this elaborate structure was made for King Frederick I of Prussia in Danzig, which is now called Gdansk, a city in Poland. In 1716, the Amber Room was given to Tsar Peter I of Russia, who placed it in St. Petersburg's Catherine Palace, where it remained until 1941 when the German Wehrmacht stole it during the invasion of the Soviet Union. The panels of the original Amber Room are yet to be recovered, so the Soviet Union commissioned a painstaking replica in 1979, which was finished in 2003. The controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline runs 765 miles along the Baltic Sea floor, connecting Russian gas with Germany and Europe. Construction began in 2018 and was completed in September 2021 at a cost of $11 billion. The project called for extensive underwater surveys to locate the best route for the Nord Stream 2, as it risked disrupting fisheries, causing excessive underwater noise, and striking shipwrecks and unexploded bombs. But the biggest problem was political. The United States long opposed the project, with both Democrats and Republicans citing the risks of Europe depending on Russia for energy. The issue came to a head in February 2022 when Russia formally recognized breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine, which it then invaded. The pipeline, which was being assessed by European regulators at the time, was to be blocked by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who said, "Now it's up to the international community to react to this one-sided, incomprehensible, and unjustified action by the Russian president.
We will bring an end to it."
The SS Karlsruhe was a cargo ship involved in Operation Hannibal, an evacuation mission during World War II. It was launched in January 1945 to avoid total destruction by the Soviet Union, which was storming toward Prussia and Berlin. German forces used any vessels they could find to carry hordes of injured soldiers and refugees. Vessels ranging from cruise ships to even fishing boats were used frantically to evacuate approximately 900,000 German civilians and 350,000 soldiers. But not everyone was so fortunate. In April, during the operation's fourth month, the Karlsruhe departed from Palau bound for Copenhagen. Carrying 1,083 passengers and a substantial load, Russian submarines torpedoed the ship dozens of miles off the Polish coast, sending it to the seafloor and killing 970 people. Decades later, in October 2020, a team of Polish divers located the wreck at a depth of 290 feet. Among the wreckage were vehicles, china, and dozens of chests, all in good condition. Another casualty of Operation Hannibal was the MV Wilhelm Gustloff in January 1945, whose sinking is known as the worst maritime disaster in history. The ship had been seldom used, so in order to avoid engine failure, the captain Frederick Peterson went no faster than 12 knots, which is about 14 miles per hour. This sluggish speed gave an advantage to Russian submarines patrolling the area. At 9:15, the Gustloff was struck by 3 Russian torpedoes, sending it to the seabed in just 60 minutes. About 9,000 people died, the majority of them civilians. There was also a sizable military element on board, with at least 1,000 personnel and significant military equipment. The wreck has since been visited by several diving expeditions, including Mike Fletcher from the Sea Hunters TV documentary, in which Fletcher revealed, "We were seeing a part of the ship that was very much like it was on the night that it sank. We were caught up in a sense of eeriness. You could only see what your light could illuminate." Bombs are scattered along the Baltic Sea floor, serving as another relic of the First and Second World Wars. According to one estimate, the Baltic and North Seas contain 1.6 million tons of munitions. This vast carpet of bombs doesn't pose an immediate threat, although it is possible for anchors to cause detonation. The bigger concern is corrosion, which damages casings and releases harmful chemicals into the environment. Not all of the weapons on the Baltic floor were dropped in combat. In 1961, large reserves of chemical weapons were dumped 5 miles off the Lübeck coast in Germany. In the ensuing decades, over 5,000 gallons of bottled poison such as chloric gas and laughing gas have dispersed across the seabed. If any of these bottles break, it could be a serious health hazard. In 1994, the MS Estonia passenger ferry sank off the coast of Uto Island, Finland, resting at a depth of about 260 feet. The catastrophe killed 852 people, making it among the worst peacetime disasters in maritime history. A 1997 investigation conducted by Estonia, Finland, and Sweden found that the disaster started when the bow door locks failed to open during a severe storm, causing serious flooding. Then in 2020, a pair of Swedish documentarians revealed that they found several holes in the ship's hull, casting doubt over the official version of events. However, their investigation was faced with legal action, as the wreck is classified as a graveyard that must not be disturbed. Nevertheless, the documentary led to another official report, which determined that the holes were too small to have sunk the Estonia in 1 hour. It was determined that the newly discovered damage was likely caused by hard contact with the seabed, which was found to be unusually rocky. In June 2011, a team of Swedish divers produced a sonar image of a strange object resembling the Millennium Falcon, the spaceship from Star Wars. The OceanX team located it in the Gulf of Bothnia, which separates Sweden and Finland in the northern Baltic Sea. After another visit to the anomaly, OceanX leader Peter Lindberg claimed to have found an entrance on top of it. He noted that it was surrounded by charred, sooty rocks, suggesting that these were the detritus of entry into Earth's atmosphere. As news of the anomaly gained media attention, experts were quick to dismiss Lindberg's conclusions. For example, Dan Fernari, marine geologist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, noted, "I would not place too much confidence in any interpretation until a better processing is done, and the details of the type of sonar and particulars are provided. The whole thing is pretty unbelievable, frankly."
It's definitely something, at least.
Another maritime tragedy of the Second World War occurred in May 1945 when the RAF sank the SS Cap Arcona, killing thousands of concentration camp victims. Adolf Hitler had died just a few days earlier when the Cap Arcona traveled out of the Bay of Lubeck and the Baltic Sea. The British were informed that the ship was carrying members of the SS, which proved to be true. However, these individuals were far outnumbered by the scores of concentration camp survivors who may have thought that their suffering was finally over. Armed with this incomplete intelligence, 5 squadrons of Hawker Typhoon fighter bombers approached the Cap Arcona as she left the German coast. Commander Derek Stevenson recalled to The Independent in 2000, "We had been in action for days, blowing up railways, refineries, and ships. For us, this was just another job. But knowing the SS were on board made us all the more determined to destroy the ships. We came in at 9,000 feet, dived to 3,000 feet, and I fired all 8 rockets and every cannon round at one ship." The Cap Arcona was decimated by this heavy fire, plunging it into the Baltic's icy waters. When it became clear that thousands of innocent victims had died, the British ordered the local German population to dig mass graves for them. The Vasa is a 17th century ship that sank just 1,300 meters into her maiden voyage. She remained in Stockholm Harbor until 1961 when she was salvaged. The Vasa is now housed in a museum and is among Sweden's most popular tourist attractions. She was built in 1627 and had impressive proportions, measuring 226 feet long and over 165 feet high. She weighed 1,200 tons and had 10 sails, 64 cannons, and 120 tons of ballast. There was, however, a problem. Captain Sulfrine Hansen had 30 men run up and down the deck, causing the ship to roll so badly that Sulfrine halted the exercise, afraid that it would sink the ship in the quay. Under pressure from the king and against his better judgment, Sulfrine ordered the ship to sail. On August 10, 1628, the Vasa began her maiden voyage before a crowd of Swedes and foreign visitors. Just 4,265 feet into her journey, a gust of wind caused the Vasa to tip, allowing water to gush through the gun ports. Within minutes, the ship sank to the seabed 100 feet below. Diving teams managed to visit the wreck using a rudimentary diving bell, a technology that wouldn't become practical until the late 1700s. However, they managed to salvage Vasa's cannon, which would be the last reclamation in over 300 years. In 1958, it was announced on Swedish radio that the Vasa had been located in the Stockholm harbor. And on April 24, 1961, the ship emerged from the depths in front of a bustling international crowd.
The world's most unsuccessful 17th century warship on display as an example of what not to do in future.
According to German maritime expert Thomas Delling, there are about 1,000 shipwrecks in German Baltic waters alone, which covers less than 10% of the sea's area. One of the heaviest clusters of wrecks can be found in the Gdansk Bay off the Polish coast. From 1941 to 1945, over 20 German U-boats were sunk in this area, many of them destroyed by British mines. But U-boats weren't always sunk by enemy fire. Sometimes the cause was human error. On February 24, 1943, U-649 was engaged in a training session off the coast of the Polish town of Łeba when it crashed into U-232, another German U-boat. While the U-232 survived the crash, the U-649 was so severely damaged that 35 of its crew perished. However, the U-232's luck was short-lived. On July 9, 1943, she was destroyed in the North Atlantic Ocean with all 46 hands lost. Then in 2020, a team of divers found the wreck 230 feet below the surface. Lead diver Tomasz Trojanovic noted to the First News, The large number of submarine wrecks at the bottom of the Baltic is no surprise. It is where the largest ports were, and the surrounding area is where training fleets were located. Numerous planes have crashed into the Baltic Sea, many of them military crafts. In July 2012, for example, a Junkers Ju-88 was pulled from the seafloor off Rügen Island by the German Military Historical Museum. Spokesman Captain Sebastian Bangert told the Associated Press, "Right now there is someone who just knows that their grandfather or great-grandfather went missing in the war. To give that person closure is our goal. And for us, as a history museum, the aircraft is the only way to convey the information." Described by the Royal Air Force Museum as the most versatile German combat aircraft in World War II, the Ju-88 was used for a variety of missions, including bombing, reconnaissance, and anti-ship actions. The 16,000 Ju-88s that were built during the war have been reduced to just a handful today, so discovery on the Baltic Sea floor was an exciting occasion. Just to the west of Rügen Island, off the coast of Gedser in Denmark, there rests the wreck of a Boeing B-17G Flying Fortress. The American bomber was returning from a mission over Ancum, Germany, when it was struck by flak cannon fire on August 4, 1944. The pilot managed to escape the plane, but the other 8 men in the crew perished.